This hater spirit, man, like the hater spirit in the music producer community is real. It's real. And I don't know why it is so prevalent, but it's real. Because it's getting personal for no good reason. At a certain point, I think the internet just makes it a very toxic environment where people can say a lot of passive aggressive stuff and direct a lot of things towards each other with like no repercussions, because it's like, what are you going to do? Like, so then how can we expect as older heads for this younger generation to even care about what we say if that is the energy that we're bringing? I made a post on this channel talking about MyGuyMars and his interactions with Bink on social media. And I made a whole video about it. You can go watch the video. It was pretty interesting, the exchange that they've had. And, this whole producer beef thing, it's been going on for a while. I've been seeing different producers beefing and whatnot, especially on YouTube. Tons of producers have had beefs and weird interactions and exchanges that make me wonder, like, what's going on with y'all, man? Like, what's the problem, right? They got even uglier with this whole MyGuyMars and Bink situation. I'm gonna share it if you hadn't seen it. MyGuyMars posted this beat video, and as you notice in the top right hand corner, that is a picture of Bink. So he's kind of like trolling Bink a little bit after the whole exchange from the other day. So I was like, wow, what's going on, right? But I at first I saw a post from Bink, and that's what made me like really look into it. So let me go back to the post from Bink, right? Bink made this post, and I saw this on Threads, and I said, huh. So he says, you can never be one of us sounding like one of us. And then the caption says, I know it hurts you to your soul, keyboard boy. Figured I'd use the very beat that showed the world I was different from everybody. This the beat that inspired your favorite producer. Mars, you're McDowell's, I'm McDonald's. Ha ha ha, right? And I said, what is going on? Why is he still attacking Mars? Like, what is the deal? I thought they was done with this. Nope. We're still going. So then I dug into it and said, oh, okay. This whole thing, so let's go back to the Mars post now. So we go back to this Mars post. I'm not going to play the music, but I would say the beat is more or less, there's definitely some Battlecat inspiration. It's not like fully like a Battlecat beat or anything like that. Not to my ear. I think to like a very surface level listener that like listens to Battlecat a certain way, they'll say, oh, that sounds like Battlecat. It sounds like Battlecat because he used a clap that Battlecat used before. So anyhow, and then Mars made this post with this beat and whatnot, and he says, old head energy versus futuristics. You ever notice how some folks got old head energy, always talking about back in my day, but never helping today's creatives? Meanwhile, the future is being built by those who share, teach, and evolve. Which side you on? Y'all gatekeeping, or y'all about being better together? You helping establish a blueprint, or just talking about how you was part of the blueprint? So definitely shots at Bink there. Definitely. No question about that. That was obviously, it's a picture of Bink in this post, and this whole like, you helping establish a blueprint, or just talking about how you was part of the blueprint. That's for sure directed at Bink. No question about that. And I think just based upon the interaction that and the conversation that Bink started about Mars, I think Mars felt like he needed to address that in a way that he felt. And, his thing was like, listen, I believe that it's better for us to help the next generation instead of just saying, oh yeah, you guys ain't doing it right. Just being an old head and just having old head energy. And I think that's a fair assessment of the situation. I think it's fair. I think if I reading this, I don't see where Mars necessarily called Bink out of his name or anything like that. There is I would say implication, or he implied that Bink has old head energy and is not focused on helping out the new generation. But here's where it gets ugly and messy. So we're gonna go back to the comments here. And then this is where I found out what Bink was referring to in his post. He says, "You can never be one of us sounding like one of us. I know that ish hurt. You a church boy that did not grow up on hip hop. Take your goofy back to the drawing board and find out who you gay supposed to sound like instead of Battlecat. That ain't in you or these lame that's agreeing with you. When I post, I'm not talking to you no way. Mr. Me Too, you could never do what I do or what the F I'm doing." So, and then he says F to your whole thread, basically. That, my friends, is now getting into a different territory of conversation. And I'm just curious, like, where does this end? Like, what's the end goal with this, right? What's the end goal of talking this way to each other online? Because it's getting personal for no good reason, right? No good reason. Like, if you don't like somebody's music, cool, keep it pushing. You don't have to even mention anybody's music that you don't like. You don't have to acknowledge it. You don't have to even bother with it. There's so much music out there today. There's no reason to acknowledge someone's music that you don't like. So, very curious, like, what's the end goal with this? What is the purpose of going online and saying that kind of stuff? I'm very curious. I think it's like I said, it's disappointing for me to see the producer community kind of behave in this way. But we've seen it before. And, I'm not going to mention any other names on this. I'm only bringing this up because it's on social. It's out there. It's about a day old now. It's up there. They put it out there. So since they put it out there, yes, I'm going to comment on it and say, I think it's distasteful. I think it's crazy for folks to get out here and think that this represents the community in any way or shape, because realistically, yeah, Bink, if you don't like MyGuyMars and his music, it's like, okay, focus on the guys that you think are dope and promote the guys that you think are doing something innovative. Like, if that's your take, then, like, I think if anything, you should be one that's digging in the crates for the hidden gems and, like, showcasing these folks. Like, these are the ones that I'm repping. These guys are dope because they do something that nobody else does. And I think that's a better use of your time than focusing on folks that you believe aren't original enough or creative enough or innovative enough. And, I think that would help the community more. But here we are going back and forth on social media and not really helping anybody in the end. It just kind of shows that, as people get older and don't get the accolades they want, they will start to lash out essentially at people that they believe are getting more accolades. And I think this sets a bad tone for the music producer community as all of us get older, because it's like, when you show this type of disrespect to the youth, I don't know what you think the youth is going to do, but they're not going to respect us. Like, when we start talking about, like, hey, maybe you should try this, or maybe you should do more of this, or have you checked into this? When they see this kind of energy, it puts on this impression that there is no respect from the older generation to this younger generation that's doing music. So then how can we expect as older heads for this younger generation to even care about what we say if that is the energy that we're bringing? If we're bringing this type of energy where it's like, yeah, let me just diss them, let me, like, talk crap about them, And, you know, like some of the stuff in here is just like, man, you're doing too much, man. Doing too much. I mean, you start talking about people's sexuality and, you know, your opinions that, you know, he didn't grow up with that sound and he didn't grow up like that. I'm sure Bink doesn't really know how My Guy Mars really grew up, and realistically, he doesn't. I don't think he understands what it even was like growing up as a millennial in Los Angeles and the impact that certain artists and producers had on the whole culture. Like, it's ridiculous to think that at some point in time, someone that grew up in LA wouldn't have been influenced by Battlecat at some point. And I mean, My Guy Mars is not the same generation as Battlecat, mind you, right? He's not even close. You know, Battlecat is a Gen X. My Guy Mars is a millennial. There's quite a bit of age difference. They are not peers. Not even close. So I think that expectation that someone of a younger generation wouldn't have influences that span to a lot of different producers that came a generation before them, that's ridiculous too. That's crazy talk to think that a music producer wouldn't have influences from, you know, someone that's 10, 15, maybe even 20 years older than them, right? That's crazy. Every musician that is of a certain age may have had influences that they reach back into, as far as they reach back and maybe take some components of that artist and bring it to a new format and bring it to a new audience that never seen any of that before. A great example of this is like Michael Jackson, right? Michael Jackson, he absolutely took so much influence from somebody like James Brown, for example. And we call Michael Jackson one of the greatest artists, entertainers, and creatives in the music industry. One of the greatest ever. And the amount of influence and emulation, even, that you could say you can see from Michael Jackson when it comes down to James Brown, it's not even debatable, right? It's not debatable. Michael Jackson took a lot of influence from James Brown. And he admits it and he showed it. Like, there's been moments where they've been on stage together and he showed it, and he knows James Brown moves and the way he got down. So that is not a disrespect, because I think if you only look at the moments where you can clearly point out the influence, you're doing that purposely to ignore all the other things that they're doing that's different than who they're influenced by. If you listen to My Guy Mars's catalog, like, his whole catalog don't sound like Battlecat, Bink, Just Blaze, or anything, you know. One of my favorite tracks from My Guy Mars is the track that he did for the game featuring Tyler the Creator. That track doesn't sound like Battlecat, doesn't sound like Bink, it don't sound like Just Blaze, it don't sound like any of them. It don't sound like any of them. It has its own thing going. And that's just one example of where he definitely has shown that he can do things beyond what he's influenced by. So this whole accusation, like, oh, he's just a Mr. Me Too and all that, crazy talk. But yeah, I think we just got to be careful with this energy that we're bringing on the internet, because it does come off as, you know, we're trying to basically emulate this whole WWE thing where we have all these, like, you know, promotions and disputes and arguments, and we're like, yeah, Hulk Hogan, we coming for you, all that kind of stuff, right? We doing that online now. Like, we talking all kind of mess with no real end goal in mind, because all this stuff could have been avoided. I'm sure they have each other's number, or it's easy for them to get in contact with each other. And instead of doing this, they could definitely just reach out, have a good conversation, get an understanding, and move on. But this type of back and forth, man, I don't think it's healthy for the community. I think it puts us in a position where younger generations see this and it just turns into a kind of an idea or concept that like old heads are haters, and they're going to hate regardless of my success, regardless of how much good stuff I do. They're always just going to nitpick and point out the bad things that they don't like about what I'm doing, and amplify that and ignore anything good that's coming from me. So then it turns into a situation where people will stop listening. Like the younger cats will stop listening. They will absolutely stop listening to older heads because they will sense that there's no respect. And I don't know that that's what we want in the end. I don't think we want a situation where producers that are younger just don't respect older cats because they sense that there is a air of disrespect ultimately. So I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. This is turning into WWE. This is like, a lot of fake, fabricated nonsense ultimately that doesn't need to happen online. Cause it's not, I mean, the way they're talking in the thread, it's like, yeah, it sound like if you said that in person, them's fighting words. I don't care what nobody say. Those are fighting words. You say that in person. I don't think they want to fight. I don't think they want to do anything like that. So it's just like, what's the end goal with this except for promotion and attention in the end? I do know my guy Mars. I've worked with him. I've worked with him on several occasions doing different things. Great guy, very very good guy, and I respect what he does. So I don't like seeing guys go after him because he's a very consistent producer, and he also is not like a guy that I found to be super arrogant as far as dealing with other producers. And he would have every right to be super arrogant, especially with people that could be considered his peers. I'm a little bit older than him, but not by much. And you know, when you're talking about peers, I could see where certain people may not want to put their peers on. They may be like, nah, I'm cool on that person. I ain't gotta help them out. I ain't gotta do nothing for them. When it's your peers, like, because this is a very competitive arena and profession. Ultimately, music is very competitive. It gets cutthroat. People have a cutthroat mentality, but I haven't experienced that type of cutthroat behavior with my guy Mars, especially. That's just my experience with him. I've never had that happen. Um, I never felt like he was trying to shut me out of opportunities. He wasn't trying to ignore me because he may not have felt that I was on his level or whatever. I never got that sense. And I think that's what makes him a great person to work with ultimately, is that he has a mentality of connecting with people, showing love to people, and working with people that when he sees fit, but he's definitely not like a standoffish guy that I've seen. I don't know that it could be easily reconciled, but it does need to be reconciled because it's not a healthy thing for our community to have. And I've seen other producers go specifically at my guy Mars. So that's why I'm pointing this out, because he did have another go around with Mike Dean. But yeah, like Mike Dean kind of got at him about the whole um, Kanye West placement that he had, or credit that he had, and was trying to basically say, well, they didn't really use your stuff, they used mine. Mike Dean has some weird stuff to say, like they didn't use those church chords and stuff. It was like, man, that's a whole different topic. But I think this whole thing of like hating on other producers, crazy. I don't think that there's any reason for someone like Mike Dean, especially, who's working with Travis Scott of all people. Like, he has no reason to hate on another producer. It's just ridiculous, just ridiculous. So, but this was it right here. This is exactly what I was looking for right here. Mike Dean's like, I made the chords on Stronger that are on the record, not this church stuff, LOL. Right? This hater spirit, man, like the hater spirit in the music producer community is real. It's real. And I don't know why it is so prevalent, but it's real. And at a certain point, I think the internet just makes it a very toxic environment where people can say a lot of passive aggressive stuff and direct a lot of things towards each other with like no repercussions, because it's like, what are you going to do? Like, it was just something I posted, right? But it has impacts, and it's like, that situation right here with Mike Dean is crazy talk, because they're both credited on the song, and it's just like, well, why are you going out your way to try to like disparage or like basically belittle such an important credit that MyGuyMars has? It's like, what is that about, man? I don't get that at all. I don't get that. So, but yeah, I've been following this stuff. It's one of many beefs online on the producer community, and these are online beefs. This ain't real life stuff. This ain't real life stuff, really. I think on a day-to-day basis, these guys ain't gonna do anything to each other. They're not trying to see each other. It's just like, let me just talk smack online and get engagement. Crazy work, y'all.